You were talking, Tina, about excessive time on social media and TV, especially during Corona. So how does this affect our youth? Is it the content or the time spent? Or both? If you could all maybe comment on that. Thank you.
I would say it would be both. I mean, there's so many other things that kids could be doing during this time, and frankly, a lot of parents are also home in quarantine. And if parents aren't home and they still have to work, I would suggest getting family members together, getting neighbors together, neighborhood kids. My kids are constantly outside playing. Of course, if it's 110 degrees outside, you got to watch for heat stroke. But my kids are playing in the backyard. They're swimming at the local pool in our subdivision, bike riding. There's a really cool website called creatingamasterpiece.com. Excellent website for kids to take art classes. Of course, my kids were all taking at Guitar Center a bunch of different music lessons, and that all got canceled because of COVID. So my kids now are playing, of course, still doing their lessons every day at the house, but I created a playlist for my oldest son, Jake, and now he's taking lessons online for free for his guitar lessons. So how can we invest our time to use the talents that God gave us to make a difference? And by being on the phone, engaging in entertainment, or watching things that aren't even healthy for our mind and body, and even if it is, how many hours should we invest in that versus actually investing in our own talents that God wants to use in us? And so it can be easily a distraction, deception, all of it. So get creative with your kids. We have a big, long list of like 15, 20 ideas. So when the kids say they're bored, which really I have not heard my kids say they were bored in I don't know how long, we have a list right in the kitchen on our wall where we can say, okay, we played a board game, so now we're going to go outside and do this, or go swimming, or read scripture. They also have a Duolingo app on a computer where they can jump on there and learn Spanish. They've been doing that for about a year. I homeschool, so they're going to be looking at the Abeka online curriculum, and I also do face-to-face teaching with our kids. Lots of different options that our kids can be doing with the time that they've got, even in the house, to make a difference, to feel like they can give back, to feel like they've made progress. And honestly, it might be a little bit hard to pry them off the cell phone or off a TV show or a series, but just give it a week or two, and I can tell you a lot of people have told me, wow, Tina, thanks for the encouragement and the different ideas. I now learned how to write a song, or I'm doing poetry, or I'm doing an art project, or a speech that I'm giving, or science project. I mean, my kids have Legos. There's so many different things that our kids can be involved with, or honestly create on their own. And that's what we should be doing right now at the time that they've got with their parents or without during lockdown, not spending a ton of time on film and TV and social media apps where they're not only getting harmful content, but also just wasting time and not really making a difference in their own lives. So check out those different options and those different ideas. And if you're watching this and you have a couple of great ideas, please send it through our app at the Counterculture Mom app. There's an Inform Us section on there, and we will blast your idea of what you're doing with your kids that's positive and engaging out to the rest of the people on that app so they have more ideas.
Yes, all that is great. And a lot of you, if you know you already have kind of lost this battle or you're struggling, doing a media fast where you can cut all of it for a week maybe to start with and then try a month, so you break the chains of addiction to staring at a screen, which also, if you look at all the research and data, it's dumbing your children down. It's so bad for the mind, for the eyes. And the reason, well, what happens then as our kids become bored because their attention span is 15, 20 seconds or less, you're in trouble because you can't learn. There's no complex idea or thing you can learn where you don't have to sit and think diligently about something or read something for an extended period of time to grasp concepts and to understand principles. So when they have dumbed them down to a text and a little thing, and that's all the attention span they have, you're finished. And boring children, I promise you this will be, bored children will be boring adults. They'll have nothing to talk about. There's nothing there. And you don't want that for your children. I mean, cut this stuff. There's so many things a child can do. I know when we were growing up, we weren't allowed to watch TV on weekdays, any of my friends, any of us, and we were plenty busy. I mean, playing and having fun and doing games and just playing football in the yard. And there's so many things to do. And if your kids, the very fact that they say they're bored, if they do, that means, wow, I've failed in this area. A child should be so thankful for the free time they have. They want to go out and play, and they want to go do those things. My kids know if you ever complain, which they don't either, hey, there's a project for you to work on. We need you to weed these flower beds. We need you to build this. We need you to fix this. And usually we have to pull them out of their fun, which is great for children. The adventure of going digging a hole in the yard and making a fort with a board over it and play is so important to the development of your creativity and your just contentment. You wonder why our kids aren't content. You need to be content all by yourself to go read a book or to play a game or build a puzzle or just talk with your brother or go out and just do simple things. The more we make things so complex, you're guaranteed to have a miserable life. God meant us to enjoy the simple things, the free things. Our family, we go out every night and play Frisbee, so we all get exercise and stuff together. And we have more fun doing that than if you sent us to Disney World. We enjoy, it's free. That's why I always tell my kids, do what's free, enjoy what's free, the things you do regularly, and then your life will be so much less expensive, one, but you won't always having to be, just following the crowd. What's everybody doing? Oh, we need to go there. So anyway, just screen time is dangerous for their brains, one. We were not put on this earth to waste our time in idle chatter. The Bible says we will give an account for every idle word spoken. Didn't say sinful words, it said idle, which is sinful. Just talking when you're not even saying anything, that's sinful. Just texting people that you don't even know or hardly know. The eyes are the windows to the soul. And you cannot have a meaningful, purposeful relationship unless that is happening regularly. And if that is happening regularly, you don't have time to keep track of your 2,000 Facebook friends. Because real relationships take time and energy and sacrifice. And you can't even do more than a couple of those at a time. Because it's supposed to be so influential. And anyway, I think those things will help your children grow up into be interesting people and content. And they will be good friends because they know what it takes to make a friendship.
Yeah, that's all very good points, and I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I wanted to pile on with one more thing, that I like to think of little kids as dogs. That if you train them, you give them a treat for doing something right, and you discipline for doing something wrong. And I mean, maybe that's wrong to say, but I babysat kids for years. I was great at it, supposedly, so it's fine. But the way that I look at social media is it can be, if used properly, an excellent outlet and an excellent teacher. So when a parent is able to sit down with a child and go through with them the different kind of like outlets through social media and the different websites, and they're able to learn together, it's great. If a kid goes to a parent and says, "Mom, I'm bored," then that is a problem. As we all agree, that's not something that kids should never be bored. My brother taught himself engineering off of YouTube. We have boxes of Legos that are just mashed up pieces of different sets that we've compiled over the years, and he will sit down, and it used to be with a YouTube video, he would copy step by step the different like bricks that you would need to build a certain thing. Now he sits down, he builds a working pinball machine from scratch. And he goes and he shows it to his friends and does stuff like that. He got a 3D printer for a Christmas gift from the whole family and taught himself coding simply to print out 3D printed objects. So all that was done through YouTube videos on his computer. Now he prints out those little creations and sells them to his friends at his homeschool convention and makes a little profit off of it. So that would be one good benefit of social media that I've seen through YouTube and stuff. My sister is 14 years old and she taught herself how to draw. Now, I personally don't have patience whatsoever, but she, for some reason, is able to sit in her room for hours and meticulously jot down little lines and colors and to create beautiful caricatures of people and stuff like that. It's amazing. She's finally started posting on social media about it, and the support that she's receiving is insane because people yearn to see what others can create and then to try to replicate what they can create. We need more positive content out there than we do negative. Just like with your list of good movies and TV shows that combat Netflix's list of bad influential TV shows and movies. And I remember that sex education show. I turned on and I was shocked. I'd never expected anything like that on Netflix, of all things, because that was a show, that was a company that you go on with your parents or something, you watch a movie with the family and stuff like that. And I just remember seeing that, and I would turn it off, and I go, wow, that's crazy. That is what, someone had to pitch that. Someone had to walk into Netflix and go, this is what we do. And then people had to be cast for that. And they told these 17, 18-year-olds, this is what you're going to be doing. And this is, it's all a product of the negativity that can come with social media. And with the negativity, we have to remember that there is positivity, and we need to combat the negativity with the positivity. We need to combat the darkness with the light. And so that's the benefit that social media can do, because as much as it is a megaphone for darkness, we could take the megaphone. It's withering on the vine. I mean, we're seeing it today with Kanye West coming out in support of Christ. Chance the Rapper, we're seeing all these big figures slowly coming to Christ. The megaphone that the darkness holds is slowly losing its grip. So we just need to take it back, and then we'll be able to combat it. When TikTok was going down, I'll say this, and then I'll be done for the next thing. When TikTok was being shut down, there was a big threat of it 2 weeks ago, I think. Every single creator, including myself, told everyone, guys, it's been great. I'm so happy to have been making videos for you. I hope you've enjoyed the content. You could find me on these other social medias in case it gets shut down. And I was with my buddy Nate, who also, he's in the Army, and he does comedic style videos to make people laugh and have a good time. And he posted something similar. We both had a bunch of followers switch over to our Instagram and send us nice heartfelt messages. And the most important message that I remember receiving, and I didn't want to start my speech with this because it was just a little heavy, but this 14-year-old girl messaged me. She goes, my parents aren't there for me. No one's there for me. No one seems to care. I've already tried to commit suicide 3 times. I'm only 14 years old. Your videos have helped me realize that there's something to smile about every single day. So thank you for posting. And that's just, that was the biggest effect that I've had, I think, on someone through social media. And so that's why I'm such a big advocate of using it for good, you know?
You hit a point there, just one more quick thought. I think the time involved we need to monitor, but when we're on it, to use it for God's glory, because that's where millions of young people are. So I think it's key that whatever talent you got, if you could share it on there, share your art, share your testimony, give great positive resources, it's key. The other thing, when you guys are both talking, and especially you taking me back to 1980, when I grew up as a kid on the farm, we were catching tadpoles in the back creek, and my parents were like, we don't want you getting into danger at someone else's house, either you wanting to get involved or something you're exposed to that you had no control over. Have everybody come over to our house. And so being farmers, my parents farmers right outside of Green Bay, I remember we'd pitch up some tents, and we had 300-acre farm, and we'd have tents pitched up. My girlfriends would come over. We have sometimes 10, 15 girls that would come on over, have a sleepover, bonfire, praise and worship music, youth group would come over. So right now during COVID, it's a good time, too, to get together and know our neighbors, because this is the first time I've seen 40 people jog past my front house door. I didn't even know that we had neighbors around. I saw the homes, never saw the people. Cookouts. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can do right now with ministry, walking out our front door and taking 10 feet with our kids, teaching them how to be a witness for the Lord with our kids. Sometimes our kids convict us, and they'll start sharing about the Lord, and I'm like, man, I should have stepped in, but way to go, Jake.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, being able to share this, God's ministry. And Braden, what you said about that 14-year-old girl who tried to commit suicide 3 times, that's what happens when you take God out of the classroom. That's what happens when you also take children away from their parents and tell them that their parents are wrong, their parents are stupid, their parents aren't experts, and and then they make up lies about homeschooling parents and that they're all crazy. But I'll be one of them, so it's okay. Tina, I have a question for you. So, debunking pop culture beauty, could you reveal the truth on proper body image or self-respect and just talk about that?
Yes. I think that a majority of Hollywood is pushing the pornography, and a lot of celebrities are dressing in an immodest fashion. Of course, a lot of girls emulate and look up to these pop culture women and think they have to dress a certain way in order to be accepted. And the sad thing is, you have celebrities over the years that wish they would have made better choices. Britney Spears, I remember 10 years ago, halfway through my speaking deal, she had a lot of regrets about, she was with Justin Timberlake back in the day saying, I wish I wouldn't have dressed provocatively and had premarital sex. I really want to wait till my wedding night. You hardly hear those words on major news sources. You have a lot of young girls that are posing and dressing immodestly that don't want to even be looking like that, but they're being forced. And you have a lot of millions of fans thinking that they have to dress a certain way in order to fit in and be trendy. So all I have to say with that is, parents, teach your girls that their image, their body is made by God for God's use, and the guys that one guy that they really want to attract is when they're ready to get married. And if the guy falls in love with who they are as a person, with their personality and their drive and goals that God's given them and the mission that they're on, not what they're flashing on the outside, you've got yourself a keeper. Because if a guy is going to fall for you with what you show on the outside and how much body parts is exposed, who's to say he's not going to drop you for somebody else 3 weeks later that's exposing more? And we're learning to lower our standards and attract people with the wrong thing. And it really drives me crazy, because a lot of these celebs, when they promote it, they're getting paid millions of dollars. They're on billboards. It looks like it's flashing in, when in reality it's very empty. I've met a lot of celebrities during my 10 years in LA at fashion runway shows, on movie sets, some of them crying backstage. I remember one bridal event that I did, and a couple women were talking to me afterwards saying, did you see me on the billboard on Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard? That's not me. They took off a bunch of pounds. They shaved, shaved down, my image on the screen and on the billboard. That's not even who I'm looking at. I can't even live up to my own image on a billboard. I've heard that so many times over the years. So be you, and don't be worried about trying to attract somebody. In fact, I don't think you should be dating anyone until you're ready to get married. A lot of young girls think they have to be sexually active with someone in order to fit in, and then they feel guilty because of everything that's wrapped around that. Pregnancy, lost their virginity, and it's Satan's tactic to deceive the masses and draw you further away from Christ. Abstinence is hardly talked about because it's talked about in a negative light, something that's uncool. And honestly, the coolest thing you could do is live for God and be you. And if you've already had sex in the past, already been sexually active in some way, God forgives, and your identity is not what you've done in the past. That's another big lie as well. And then steer clear from any influences that you're looking at, trying to think that that's the way you're supposed to live your life. Don't look at those magazines. Don't download those apps. Don't follow people on Instagram, celebrities on Instagram that dressed immodestly. And then, honestly, it'll be less and less of a temptation for you to feel like you have to do it in order to fit in. Then, sorry, I didn't think I was going to go this long. Ideas. Start an Instagram social media platform. Start a website of modest dressing. Create a fashion line that's for modest dressing, where you're fully clothed and covered and classy. because there will be millions of people that will follow what you're doing because you're doing something against what the culture is promoting, and it's in. People want it. There's just a lack of options. So instead of following other people that's making you feel less than, start your own clothing company where millions of girls can follow what you're doing that is raising the standards in our culture, making women feel classy and loved for who they are, not what they're showing on the outside.
Thank you. You know, it's a very interesting topic because body image today isn't just what you're wearing. Because of the filters that you were talking about, it's actually becoming like a mental disorder that kids are looking at themselves through these filters. It'll change your face. It can make it look like you're 10 years younger or you're a fairy or something like that. And actually people are going to get face surgery based on their favorite filter. This is happening. And so I think when I was younger and I first got my phone, I used to let my cousins and nieces and nephews play with my Snapchat so they could look through the filters. And it's really fun until they start getting addicted to it. And I found even for myself, I will not put filters on regularly because it is like an addiction. And so as parents, I would just encourage you to watch what your kids are, how they're filtering their face on Snapchat. It sounds weird, but it really is becoming a huge body image issue, especially for young girls. So Braden, I have a question for you. So we've been talking a lot about how we can inform parents to then talk to the children. How can we kind of reverse that as well, maybe through social media? How can we reach out to the youth in a way that can get them to also talk to the parents and kind of create this dual circle?
That one has always been something that I've considered because you have to have both ways. You can't have one without the other, right? As you know. The hard thing about that is as rebellious teenagers, the last thing we want to do is go to our parents. Like that, it's mom and dad. Ooh, why would we want to talk to them about anything? But we have to realize and we have to see the benefit in going to them and just kind of explaining everything, what one is going through, what they need help with, what they want to talk about. My mom and I had a great conversation just a week ago about social media and how detrimental it can be to people who don't regularly check in. And so it's a fine balance between being overbearing as a parent and being underbearing, just like the girl who came to me and messaged me. Her family wasn't there for her. Her parents she didn't think they cared. And I think all it takes is just phones away at dinner, sit down, have a conversation, talk. The last thing that a kid wants is to be treated like a kid. That is the very last thing that a young child wants. They want to be treated like an adult because that's what they're trying to be, and they're trying to emulate their parents. And if they can't emulate their parents because they don't see them enough every day, they're going to emulate the next best thing, which is what you see on social media. So the very best thing that you can do as a parent is just to sit down and have a conversation. Treat them as your equal. As weird as that may sound, if they're 10 years old or something, just sit down and have an actual conversation with them about what's going on in their life, what's bothering them, what's making them happy, who they're talking to at school, what social media apps they're using. As weird as it sounds, it's as simple as that. My parents do it with my little siblings. They do it with me. We sit down, we put our phones away at dinner, and we just talk. And as a family, we grow together, and it is so exponentially valuable. Yeah.
Parents, if you think you can build a good relationship with your children by just living in the same home with them, you're kidding yourself. Just like if you had friends that you never talked to but just were around them but never said anything, they wouldn't be friends. They wouldn't be someone you even knew. Parents have to, why I think some of that social media needs to go is so there's time left over for parents to spend time with their children, to get to know them, to build a relationship, because you have to have a relationships to have influence. If you do not have a relationship, they could care less what you say about anything, and they will go behind your back on everything. But once you knit their heart to yours by investing in them, by loving them, by having high standards for them, and where you tell them, sweetie, I'm not going to let you do that. I know everybody else is, but I love you. And that ends in destruction. I was young once. I've already seen that play out. It doesn't work. And the book of Proverbs, my favorite book in the Bible, and I've made all my children memorize the entire book because it's wisdom. Who doesn't want to be wise? He says, Solomon to his son, the wisest man that ever lived, said, my son, give me thine heart and let thine eyes observe my ways. I remember reading that going, wait a minute. If their eyes are supposed to observe my ways, they have to be with me. That can't happen if they're gone all day, gone all night, gone all weekends. And so I started taking all my children with me, or as many as I could, everywhere I went. I haven't gone on a trip in 10 years without 1 or 2 or 3 of my children with me. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for me to be sitting in a car by myself. When I have my son Crockett's with me this trip, we talked for the last 11 hours driving from Texas. So I have time with them, and I can talk to them. What's going on? Were you struggling with this or that? We were just at another conference. And just getting to know him and enjoy him and be able to tell him 10 times in one day, I'm so glad God put you in my family. I'm so thankful. He is so good to me. I don't understand it, but I'm excited for your future and to give him a vision. If you do things God's way, son, you're going to see what he's going to do for you. It'll blow your mind. Don't be deceived. But the time has to be there. About 20 years ago, because I just was inspired by someone, I started letting everything go in my life. Used to be great at golf and loved it, but I said, nope. If I am to raise these children to go change the world, I don't have time for golf. And that was just my decision. I've played one time in the last 25 years, but I'm so glad I didn't do that. Now I go, thank you, Lord, for giving me the discernment to know that was worth doing. Because now I have 9, most of them are adults now, that are my best friends in the entire world. And I think most of them, which I'm so grateful for, would say, and Daddy's my best friend. And it's special when you invest. Parents, God has put a love for you and your children from birth. You didn't do anything to deserve it. It's the way he's designed things. But what happens, your kids see you as their hero, naturally. But what happens over time is we prove to them, no, we're not their hero, because I don't have time for you. Hey, no, I'm busy. I have to get out of here. What? And finally they go, oh. And they'll go find another hero or a friend or someone. But if you take that time to invest and love and enjoy, kids are not just a mouth to feed and a burden. Enjoy them and love them. You'll start to see, and it might take a little work to baby step into this. You'll go, turn the dumb TV off. We have so much fun playing games at night. We have so much fun laughing about things or playing music. My kids are so musically talented because they had the time. They weren't doing all those other things. And you just realize, oh my goodness, it's just the family is incredible, but we need to invest. As in anything, you want to win the Olympics, you got to go practice hard and sweat and spend hours running. If you want to be a great parent, you got to go invest and sweat and spend the hours, but the reward is far greater than any Olympic medal. I promise you that.
That's so good. I was just going to say a thing. I like to get stuff done fast so I can cram in more things. And God's been like smacking me in the side of the head during this COVID chaos time, saying, you've got time. You're not on the road speaking all over my creation. So instead of kicking the kids out of the kitchen, because you can get the meal done in 18 minutes versus an hour and a half, have the children in there. So now every other night or so, I have a different kid in the kitchen. And Stella, who's 7, was cooking the meal last night. And it was fantastic. The night before that, it was my 11-year-old son. So I'm learning how to take different things that I could get done faster with no kids and getting them out of my hair. I'm now said, come in my hair. Help me with these different things. And it's a way for us to teach. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. My husband will attest to that. But I'm learning how to be more patient with the kids and get them involved with doing stuff with me so they can learn. And I'm realizing the benefit of that is soon I'll be able to say, Jake, you've got dinner tonight. I'm going to take off and hang out with the other 3 kids. You're in the kitchen. And it makes them feel like a sense of accomplishment. Mom trusts me, making a meal. So just some ideas now that we have a chance to reset the parenting button to get the kids more involved. You guys are getting me so fired up, everything you're saying. So get creative on what you can do with the family, with the kids.
Thank you. Yeah, that kind of triggered something with me too. I am the 8th of 10 children, so big family too. My mom and dad are so awesome, and they've really been involved in our education. I think as the 8th, being one of the youngest, I was able to learn through conversation, dinner conversation, listening to my older siblings debate and talk with my parents. And parents come to us all the time wondering, where, can I find more about Common Core? Where can I find more about what's going on in the school? You can find it out from the best resource, which is your kid who's experiencing all of it. Because even though I was a very angsty teenager and, didn't want to talk to my mom, but I did. I love talking to my mom, but I just we all put up this front, kind of. Well, she picked me up every day after school and would let me ramble all the way from first period to the last period and tell her everything that I learned. And if she wouldn't have let me do that, she wouldn't have ever found out what was going on in the school system. So it's super important. Listen to your kids because they want to talk to you and tell you what's going on. And you have a question, Rebecca? Here, I'll give you this.
So Curtis, you were talking about the 45 goals of the Communist Party, and all of them are disturbing. But there's one where they talk about how they want to convince everybody that they're mentally ill. And so I would like for you or any of you to address that, because what I'm noticing as a public school teacher, I see that constantly. Every kid has ADHD and we're going to put him on drugs and make him a little girl. And every kid has some mental illness or they're OCD. We're taking their amazing talents and gifts and turning them into something negative. So I just would like to hear you address that, because I've seen the church buy into it, and I have personally know a lot of people who are convinced that their children are mentally ill. And I think it's quite disturbing, because God says that we're not, that our minds are I can't remember the scripture, but anyway, it's not true. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I truly believe every healthy young boy has ADHD, ADD, triple D, whatever. God did not intend for a little boy to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day. The entire system is designed for girls, and therefore they have to feminize the boys, they have to drug the boys so they'll be more like girls. And they've written papers on this, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. If we could get everyone, all men, to think like women, then we could have a peaceful world. And they're under this illusion that if men are gone, which they're right on one hand, then they will be able to dominate so much easier. And they will. They're scared of a strong, healthy man that has courage, that has purpose, they're scared to death. So that's what it is. I mean, it's wrong. It's just not right. No little boy should be able to. And if he is, then you're like, okay, there's a problem. He must be watching too much TV at home, where he's used to just sitting there doing nothing. He's practiced that so much he can do it. Because no little boy, I have 6 boys. Not one of them can do it. We have to take a break after an hour. For an hour break, go outside. I want 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, and I want you to take two laps around the pond, and then come back and we'll do the next thing. And so that's the way God designed them. So when we set a system up that is against them, you're going to just have problem after problem after problem. And these sweet little boys, there's just so many, it just breaks your heart. They're being lied to, first of all, about who they are. Well, you might not be a little boy. All this evil, that you would pervert the mind of a child. The Bible says it'd be better to have a millstone tied around your neck and to jump in the ocean. But that's what's happening. And they're drugging them. And then, so of course, you've been drugged through school to get into recreational drugs. Of course, it's a logical thing, because you're not used to having your mind feel normal. So that's the norm of just slightly being off. And so we wonder, why do we have a drug problem in this country? Why do we have suicide problem? And why do we have all these issues? They've been self-inflicted by a system that hates children.
I would just like to say that that it refers back to destroying the family system, because when you convince someone that they are mentally ill or mentally handicapped, what does everyone else do? They treat that person differently. When you're a little boy growing up and your entire family treats you differently than they do your siblings, you begin to grow a disliking for those people who are treating you differently, because you think that they see you as something that you're not. You think that they look at you with disdain or disgust or anything like that, and you eventually grow a disliking towards them, in which case you are ripping apart the family structure because you are tearing the boy away from his parents. And I will also say that during my homeschool in 7th grade, that was challenge A for classical conversations. That's what I did. My mom was my teacher, and after every subject, every single boy in the class would bolt around the entire little campus, which was a church that let us use as facility. So we'd bolt 2 laps and we'd see who would win. And I noticed every single girl sat in class. Sometimes they would join, but for the most part, they sat and talked. We ran around a couple times, came back, did a subject, ran around a couple times. And so we need to move. I can't sit still. It kills me.
And I was going to add in there, I remember over the years, didn't read anything recently, but I remember over the years reading articles that the schools get a kickback for all the meds that they put the kids on. So if they get a kickback from every med you put a kid on, I'm going to give this kid 4, and Johnny's getting 4, and Sally's getting 7, and Carla's getting 2. So more cash in the school system by putting these kids on drugs. It's really sad but true. So homeschool them.
Yeah, we're at Florida Citizens Alliance. We're a big advocate of, the public school system really teaches that one size fits all. One size does not fit all. Every student learns differently. And if your kid is having a hard time focusing in class, it's probably not that they need some kind of medication. There's some other underlying problem. Maybe they need a tutor. Maybe they need to be homeschooled or a private school. You can explore your options, and we encourage you to do that.
That in a society that preaches that every single person is special and unique, they are trying to make everybody the same. That's kind of confusing to me.
So we have 3 minutes left, so I just wanted to do a little lightning round. If each of you could just do a minute of closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up today's session.
I'm first, okay. Parents, build a trust with your kids. Kids will come to you when they trust you, and that's how they'll explain their problems to you. I recently had a friend who broke down in front of his mom and finally confessed a problem, but before he did, he said, "Promise you won't be mad." And that's heartbreaking, because he was so afraid to say what his problem was, that he was so worried about what the repercussions might be, that he waited years to do it, to finally lift this burden off. And when he finally did, it felt so good, it felt so relieving, that it was like he was a new person. So you need to instill a trust, a bond between the parents and the child, because then they'll come to you with everything and anything.
Yeah, no, that's one thing, 2 things I'd like to say. One is, don't be discouraged if you realize I got a long way to go. I remember the day I heard the talk that changed my life. I was so excited because I kind of knew where I was going, but I was so discouraged because I realized I've got so far to go. So don't be discouraged. You just got to start baby stepping in the right direction with a vision for your family. On what Tina talked about a little bit ago about modesty, the best definition I've ever heard of modesty is this. It's not rules, it's not lengths, it's not all this. It's dress in such a way it draws attention to your face. So it's not rule, it's just you're dressing where it makes you look prettier, your face, and that's where you're looking, because if you don't do that, as men, all men know, you do become an object. If we're not looking at your face, if men are looking at your body, then you're a body. And you're worthless, you're nothing. They might sweet talk you, "Oh, I love you, I like you." They just want the body, because that's what you drew them to. And men are just evil, ladies, if you haven't figured that out yet. In their heart, they can be so evil to use you and lie to you to get what they want. So don't do that. And when you dress in such a way that it makes your face look beautiful, and that's who you really are, and your eyes are the windows to your soul, you're going to attract the right kind of guy that looked at you and said, "That girl's so nice and kind, and yes, she's cute too, but I just enjoyed talking to her." They enjoyed you for the right reasons, not to manipulate you and deceive you and to use you. So I just want to encourage you that, because our culture wants to use all women.
Well, I think I'm done. Just kidding. I think the thing that's rolling through my mind right now is if you're watching this and you're not sure if we're speaking the truth, or you don't agree with something we have to say, or you think that what we're saying isn't correct, what's going on in our culture today is there's a lot of name calling, there's a lot of slander, there's a lot of death threats, there's a lot of hate. None of us want to share inaccurate information to get death threats. We're all trying to help, like the whole conference, all the speakers for the next 48 hours are trying to get the truth out there because we care about you. So do the research. Don't spend time slandering people that are saying an opposite message of what you're used to. Do the research, dig in deep. If we're saying something that's challenging your train of thought, dig in, look up some information, probably not on Google. Read some books. Check out what we're saying. I mean, check out our websites, go to our social media platforms, but start digging in, because I can tell you 27 years ago when I got my first videotape, VHS, going way back, on Clinton Chronicles, I'll just say that it opened my eyes, and it was a journey for the last 3 decades of learning what God wanted to share with me. And God will show you the truth. He's not going to tell you dig in deep and then not give you clarity. He's not going to tell you pray and not answer prayer. He's not going to tell you take 2 steps forward in your ministry and here's where I want you to go and then not fund it. God's going to give you vision. He's going to give you truth, but we have to dig in deep to the Word of God. And if we find something challenging, I just ask you, do the research before you blast somebody that might be saying something opposite of what you believe. We care about you. We're here because we want you to go to heaven. We want you to have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ, and we want you to be on the right path and the right direction. So dig in deep like we have and help us and give us knowledge if we're missing something, so we can be on this road together in the right direction, because Christ is right around the corner.
Thank you.
We have a live stream question.
I'm sorry?
We have a live stream question
Okay.
from Rescuing Our Children. Are there any homeschooling programs where the parent does not have to be the teacher?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to just mention those real quick, and then we'll...
And typically a parent chooses to be a tutor. It's a once-a-week homeschooling program where the kids will get together at a church or a facility that lends its building space for that one day. And the only thing is, as for all the years that I did it, my mom was a teacher for my 7th grade year and my senior year. Every single other year, all she did was give my siblings and I a checklist, said, go get it done. And kids are sufficient. When you put the trust in your kids to do it and say, here's your checklist, you do this, and you get an hour of games, kids will do it. It's a pretty good motivator. Find what they like, talk to them, develop that trust, and you're golden.
And in doing it like that, where you're self-motivating them, you're preparing them for the future. All the rest of life, you don't have a teacher standing over you. Did you do your stuff? Did you do your stuff? You either did it or you didn't. And that's one of my favorite things about homeschooling, is it teaches the children to be independent, to be responsible, and to get the job done. Because, yeah, like he was saying, then you're free. Here's your stuff for the day. If you're done in 3 hours, you're done. Then you can go play the piano. You can go outside and play football. You can go swim and do whatever. And so you're teaching them to see the benefit of being productive, see the benefit of being disciplined, seeing the benefit of those things. It's not like the school system where you're here for 7 hours whether you like it or not. I used to be a high school math teacher, so I know the system. And it's so ineffective. When I started homeschooling at the beginning, after having been a teacher, I was shocked when my kids would get the entire curriculum done in 2.5 hours. I'm like, well, something's wrong here. And I realized, no, they're going through the entire books. They're doing everything. There's just no wasted time of taking roll, handing back papers, telling people to be quiet, sit down, shut up, do all the things, the wasted time, and then between classes and PE and recess, just all the things. And so again, it doesn't teach them to be bored. You were talking earlier about a lot of kids that just aren't doing it. A lot of them are just not doing it in school and having trouble because they are so bored. I was so bored, I struggled to make C's because it was so boring. I wanted to do something with my life and just sit there and have to review the thing again and review the thing again. It wears you out, where you finally unplug and just like, what I start drawing, doodling on my paper, whatever. And I know so many of my friends were like that. So that's why I couldn't stand school because it was so boring. Well, homeschool does that. You can get, I've had kids that graduated 3 or 4 years early. They're 15. I go, if you're done with everything, okay, go start your business. It's time. The point of education is not to waste your time. It's to teach you what you need for life. No, and if I encourage my boys, get married young so you can have lots of children, so you can enjoy the wife of your youth. But you got to be a man then to do that. And you'd be able to provide for her and protect her and to take care of her. And so they seem to get that at a young age. Okay. And so they're busy, getting ready to do that soon. Because it's important to them. They realize family's everything. And that's what we want. And I said, well, here's how you get there. And so we got to instill a vision and motivate them, and they have so much potential.
I was going to say to the person asking that question, and possibly thousands of other parents asking the same question, can you find a curriculum where you don't have to be involved? Why do you not want to be involved? Because I can, if it's because of time crunch or you have a job, I get that. Then you could always do a co-op. You teach some of the classes throughout the week and then have a neighbor across the street teach some classes. Mine was, there's no way I'm going to do homeschooling because I am not a patient person. I want to save America and millions of other kids. And then God's like, and not save your own. Like, don't put your own kids on the altar for the sake of America's kids, because you can't be counterculture mom and share your expertise if you're not doing it yourself. And so for the parent asking that, if you're afraid or you think you can't do it or you're never going to be able to get a hold of your 10-year-old daughter, you can. It definitely is possible. And God might be calling you to do that to create the closeness you need to have with your kids. It is possible. And I'm speaking, blogging, writing, a radio program, and homeschooling for kids. The 3 oldest, I do online schooling because of that. Because of time, but I'm still involved in grading papers and checking in every single day. We're all in the same schoolroom. But the other thing is, I have 4 kids in 4 years. I literally didn't do online schooling until this last year. Prior to that, I was teaching all 4 kids face-to-face. I would be teaching 8 to 9 hours a day because they're each in a different grade. Yes, you can pound them out in 2, 3. I don't know how you did it. You'd be teaching around the clock. So each grade is different. So online, Abeka is what I use, and I love it, but there's a lot of great homeschooling options. Greater Homeschool Convention, they have a great website. Teach Them Diligently, they have a great website for tons of resources, tons of curriculum options that you can get involved with. And Sam Sorbo, your mom, is speaking tomorrow on her homeschooling journey. She has books out there as well that is fantastic about different options for homeschooling. So definitely possible. Like one of my dear friends says, the worst day of homeschooling will always be better than the best day in a public school.
And I'll also give another shout out to a great online classical academy. It's called Freedom Project Academy. You can, basically they have online teachers that you're live talking back and forth to. My little sisters did that for a year, and they were definitely very challenged with that. They loved it. So thank you again, all of you, for tuning in with us today. Our agenda for tomorrow is similarly packed with extraordinary speakers such as Sam Sorbo, retired chaplain E. Ray Moore, Alex Newman, Rebecca Friedrichs, who was actually featured on Glenn Beck this past Thursday morning, if you were listening, and many more. We strongly encourage and invite you to share this program tonight with your friends and family. There's nothing in this world more precious than a child. We treasure the immeasurable value and undeserved gift of children. God calls on all of us to protect the minds of our children from those who regard them as commodities. Marxist indoctrination, sex trafficking, and the enticement of the pop culture industry are crimes being committed against our children even as we speak. And that's why we are here. Would you join us in an effort to rescue them? Text the word rescuing to 50155 to donate any amount. Thank you.